Tommy, grab me another beer, would you? And maybe try not to trip over your own feet this time. That was my wife, Jessica, holding court on our back patio like she was running for mayor of suburban hell. Her three best friends, Chelsea, Maddie, and Tara, cackled like hyenas at what passed for wit in their little circle. I stood there in my work clothes, still smelling like pipe cement and drywall dust from my handyman business, watching these women tear me apart one joke at a time. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Seriously though, Chelsea continued, not bothering to lower her voice, how do you even deal with coming home to this? She gestured at me like I was a broken appliance she'd found at a garage sale. I'm Tom Rourke, 38 years old, and apparently the biggest joke in Cleveland's suburbs, at least according to my wife and her charming friends. I run a small home repair business, nothing fancy, but it pays the bills and keeps food on the table. Used to think that mattered. Used to think a lot of things mattered. Oh, come on, girls, Jessica said with that fake sweetness she'd perfected over the years. Tommy's not that bad. He's just comfortable. Aren't you, honey? Comfortable. Like an old couch you keep meaning to replace but never quite get around to it. I grabbed her beer from the cooler, noting how Chelsea immediately started filming on her phone. Everything was content for her Instagram these days. Here you go, Jess, I said, handing her the bottle. Thanks, sweetie, she said, then turned back to her audience. You know what Brad said when he saw Tommy at the hardware store last week? My blood went cold. Brad Watkins, Jessica's ex-boyfriend from high school, the one she'd dated for 3 years before we got together, the one who drove that ridiculous black Dodge Charger and spent more time at the gym than most people spend at their actual jobs. What did Brad say? Maddie asked, leaning forward like she was about to hear state secrets. He said, I can't believe Jessica settled for the repair guy when she could have had the real deal. Jessica took a long sip of her beer. I mean, he's not wrong. Brad's got his own business now. 3 locations. And those arms, Tara added with a giggle. Remember when he helped you move that dresser last month? I thought Tommy was going to have a heart attack trying to keep up. I remembered that day. Brad had shown up unannounced while I was at work, claiming Jessica had called him for help. When I got home, there he was, flexing and posing while my wife watched with obvious appreciation. I'd tried to help, thrown out my back in the process, and spent the next week walking like a question mark. Poor Tommy, Chelsea said, still filming. It must be hard being married to someone so far out of your league. Chelsea, Jessica protested, but she was laughing. They were all laughing. I stood there for another moment, listening to them dissect my inadequacies like I wasn't even present. The sad thing was, this wasn't unusual. This was Tuesday night in the Rourke household. This was my life. I'm going inside, I said quietly. Don't forget to take out the trash, Jessica called after me. The can's getting full. More laughter. Always more laughter. I walked into our kitchen, my kitchen, since I'd renovated it myself, and opened the refrigerator. Grabbed myself a beer and stood there in the blessed silence, listening to their voices drift through the screen door. They were talking about their upcoming girls' trip to Lake Erie, some Airbnb rental they'd booked for the weekend. I'm telling you, I heard Chelsea say, this is your chance to figure out what you really want. Life's too short to waste on someone who doesn't appreciate you. Brad's been texting me, Jessica admitted. Just friendly stuff, but nothing, Maddie interrupted. You deserve better than this suburban mediocrity. You're still young, still gorgeous. Why are you wasting your best years on someone who fixes toilets for a living? I took a long drink of my beer and smiled. Not a happy smile, the kind of smile you get when you finally understand the punchline of a joke that's been going over your head for months. See, here's what these women didn't know about me. I might fix toilets for a living, but I'm pretty good at reading people too. You spend enough time in strangers' homes, dealing with their problems, and you learn to pick up on things. Body language, tone of voice, the way someone's story doesn't quite add up. Jessica had been working late a lot recently, taking calls in the other room, hiding her phone screen when I walked by. Classic signs, really. I just hadn't wanted to see them. You know what I think? Tara was saying. I think you should text him back. What's the worst that could happen? Tommy would lose his mind, Jessica replied. So, let him. Maybe it's time he realized what he's got before he loses it. I finished my beer and headed upstairs to our bedroom. Sat down on the bed I'd built from scratch with hand-carved headboard and everything, and really looked around for the first time in months. This house was my masterpiece. Every room renovated by my own hands. Custom cabinets in the kitchen, hardwood floors I'd refinished myself, crown molding that had taken me 3 weekends to install perfectly. I'd turned this place from a rundown ranch into something special, but apparently none of that mattered if you weren't Brad Watkins with his 3 gym locations and his flashy car. I heard the screen door slam as the girls finally headed inside. Their voices got louder as they moved through my renovated living room, past my custom-built entertainment center, toward the kitchen, where they'd no doubt drink more of my beer and plan my wife's infidelity in more detail. Tommy? Jessica called up the stairs. We're going to watch a movie. Try to keep it down up there. Sure thing, I called back. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling I'd textured and painted myself, listening to them laugh at whatever romantic comedy they'd chosen. Probably something about a woman leaving her boring husband for someone more exciting. They loved those movies. Around midnight, I heard car doors slamming as Chelsea, Maddie, and Tara finally went home. Jessica came upstairs a few minutes later, tipsy and smiling. Did you have fun with your friends? I asked. Oh, you know how it is, she said, starting to undress. Girl talk. Nothing important. She climbed into bed beside me, and I could smell Brad's cologne on her clothes. Subtle, but there. She must have hugged him goodbye when he'd stopped by earlier, something she'd forgotten to mention. Jess, I said quietly, are you happy? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what kind of question is that? An honest one. Another pause. I'm fine, Tommy. We're fine. Everything's fine. Fine. The most dangerous word in any marriage. Good, I said. That's good. But as I lay there listening to her breathe, I was already making plans. Because here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. People forget that quiet doesn't mean stupid. And comfortable doesn't mean complacent. They wanted to see what happened when the boring husband finally got pushed too far. They were about to find out. Friday morning came with the sound of Jessica dragging her suitcase down the stairs I'd rebuilt last summer. She'd packed enough clothes for a month, not a weekend, and her makeup bag looked like she was preparing for a photo shoot. You sure you need all that for a girls' trip? I asked, sipping my coffee at the kitchen table. You never know what we might end up doing, she said, not meeting my eyes. Chelsea wants to go out, maybe hit some bars. I need options. Options. Right. I'd been up since 5, same as always, but instead of heading straight to work, I'd spent some time thinking, planning. You don't run a successful handyman business without learning how to think 3 steps ahead. Every job starts with assessment, then planning, then execution. This situation wasn't any different. Marco's coming by later to help me with that fence repair, I said casually. Marco Hendricks lived next door and had become my closest friend over the past few years. Good guy, divorced, understood what it was like when women decided you weren't enough anymore. That's nice, Jessica said, checking her phone for the 15th time in 10 minutes. Listen, Tommy, I need to tell you something. Here it comes, I thought. She sat down across from me, put on what I'd started calling her serious face, the expression she used when she was about to deliver bad news, but wanted to seem caring about it. "My friends think you're a joke," she said. "They're right." I blinked. Even expecting something harsh, the bluntness caught me off guard. "I mean," she continued, "look at yourself. Look at this life. You fix other people's problems all day, then come home and what? Watch TV, drink beer. You don't have any ambition, any drive. You're content to just exist." "I built this house," I said quietly. "You fixed up an old house," she corrected. "There's a difference. Brad's building an empire, 3 gyms, and he's looking at opening 2 more. He's got plans, goals, a vision for his future. And you want to be part of that vision." She looked surprised that I'd said it so directly. "I want to be with someone who challenges me, someone who makes me want to be better. When's the last time you made me feel excited about anything?" I nodded slowly. "When's the last time you tried to be excited about anything I do?" "That's not the point." "Isn't it?" She stood up, grabbed her suitcase. "I'm not doing this right now. I'm going to have a good time with my friends, and when I get back, maybe we can talk about where this marriage is really going." "Maybe we can," I agreed. Chelsea's car honked outside, some leased BMW she couldn't actually afford but needed for the image. Jessica headed for the door, then stopped. "Try not to burn the house down while I'm gone," she said. It might have been meant as a joke, but there was real contempt in her voice. "I'll do my best," I replied. After she left, I sat there for another few minutes finishing my coffee. Then I called Marco. "Hey man," he answered on the second ring. "Still on for that fence thing?" "Change of plans," I said. "How do you feel about helping me move some furniture?" "Moving furniture? What kind of furniture?" "All of it." There was a pause. "Tommy, what's going on?" "Jessica's gone for the weekend. I think it's time I made some changes around here." "About damn time," Marco said. "I'll be over in 20 minutes. Should I bring the truck?" "Bring the truck." Marco showed up with coffee, donuts, and a grin that could have lit up downtown Cleveland. He was a big guy, used to work construction before his back gave out, with graying hair and laugh lines that came from years of finding humor in life's disasters. "So," he said, looking around my living room, "we talking about redecorating, or we talking about something more dramatic?" "We're talking about Jessica coming home to find all her stuff neatly packed and waiting for her on the front lawn." His grin got wider. "Now that's what I call a weekend project." We started in the bedroom. Jessica's clothes, shoes, jewelry, makeup, everything that was specifically hers went into boxes and garbage bags. I was methodical about it, careful not to damage anything. This wasn't about destroying her property. It was about making a point. "Jesus, Tommy," Marco said, holding up a pair of shoes that probably cost more than I made in a week. "How many pairs of heels does one woman need?" "Apparently 47, I said, having counted them as I packed. "Plus 32 pairs of sneakers, 18 pairs of boots, and something called statement sandals that I'm pretty sure were designed by someone who hates feet. And she gives you grief about buying tools. Tools are useful. These things are like art, expensive, impractical, and designed to impress people you don't actually like." We worked through the morning, room by room. Jessica's books, mostly romance novels and self-help guides about finding your authentic self. Her kitchen gadgets, the juicer she'd used twice, the bread maker that had never been removed from its box, the espresso machine that cost more than my monthly truck payment. Her decorative pillows, her scented candles, her collection of wine glasses for every possible occasion. "You know what's funny?" Marco said as we loaded another box into his truck. "She's got all this stuff, but I bet she couldn't tell you the square footage of this house, or what kind of wood you used for those cabinets, or how many hours you spent making this place beautiful." "Probably not," I agreed. "But she could tell you exactly how much Brad benches, what kind of car he drives, and how much money he makes." Her loss, man. This place is incredible. You've got skills most guys would kill for. By afternoon, we'd cleared out everything that belonged to Jessica. The house looked strange. Bigger somehow, but also emptier. Like a theater after the actors have gone home. So, what's the plan now? Marco asked as we arranged the last of the boxes on the front lawn. I pulled out a piece of paper and a pen, wrote a simple note. Hope your friends think this punchline is funny too. Tommy. Now we wait, I said, taping the note to the front door. What about you? Where are you going to stay? I've got that apartment above the Kowalski place. Been using it for storage, but it's got a kitchen and bathroom. I can camp out there for a while. Marco nodded. Need help moving your stuff? Already done. Moved my essentials over there this morning before you got here. Damn, Tommy. You really thought this through? I've had plenty of time to think. We spent the rest of the day at Murphy's Bar, a dive about 10 minutes from the house. The kind of place where the beer was cold, the music wasn't too loud, and nobody asked questions they didn't want answered. Marco knew the bartender, a woman named Rita who'd been serving drinks there since the Carter administration. You boys look like you've been working, she said, setting down 2 beers without being asked. Moving day, Marco explained. Tommy here just made some major life changes. Good for you, honey, Rita said to me. Life's too short to waste on people who don't appreciate what they've got. Around 6 o'clock, my phone started buzzing. Text messages, one after another. Jessica had apparently returned home early from her girls' trip. The first message, "What the hell, Tommy?" The second, "This isn't funny." The third, "You can't just throw me out of my own house." The fourth, "Call me right now." I showed the messages to Marco, who nearly choked on his beer laughing. She's got some nerve, he said. Her own house? Didn't you buy that place before you even met her? Yep. Put the down payment down with money I'd saved from my first 3 years in business. She moved in about 6 months after we got married, but the deed's in my name. My phone rang. Jessica. You going to answer that? Marco asked. Eventually. It went to voicemail. Rang again immediately. Tommy, this is ridiculous. Jessica's voice came through when I finally answered. You can't just kick me out because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. I'm not kicking you out, I said calmly. I'm just making it clear that if you'd rather be somewhere else, you're free to go. That's not what this is about, isn't it? You said it yourself, Jess. Your friends think I'm a joke, and you agree. So why would you want to live with a joke? Because you're my husband. Am I? Because lately it feels more like I'm your roommate, one you don't particularly like. There was a long pause. We need to talk about this face to face. We can talk, but not tonight. I'm busy. Busy doing what? Having a beer with my friend. You remember friends, right? People who actually enjoy your company? I hung up. That was cold, man, Marco said, but he was smiling. That was honest, I corrected. My phone buzzed with another text. Fine, but this isn't over. I typed back, no, it's not. It's just getting started. Rita brought us another round. On the house, she said, for the newly liberated. Thanks, Rita. You know what I think? She said, wiping down the bar. I think that woman just learned something important about taking people for granted. What's that? Sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous. I raised my beer in a toast. To being dangerous. Marco clinked his bottle against mine. To being dangerous. Outside, the sun was setting over Cleveland's suburbs, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Somewhere across town, my wife was probably calling her friends, crying about how unreasonable I was being, how I'd snapped without warning. But it wasn't without warning. The warning had been every joke at my expense, every eye roll, every time she'd made me feel small in front of people who mattered to her. The warning had been 3 years of marriage to someone who saw me as a placeholder until something better came along. Well, something better had finally arrived. And his name was Brad Watkins. Monday morning brought rain and the kind of gray sky that made Cleveland look like a black and white photograph. I was up early, making coffee in my temporary apartment above the Kowalski place, when my phone started buzzing. 3 missed calls from Jessica, 2 from Chelsea, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. The apartment wasn't much. A studio with a kitchenette, a fold-out couch, and a bathroom that had seen better decades. But it was mine. No decorative pillows, no scented candles, no passive-aggressive notes about leaving dishes in the sink. Just space to think and plan. I was scheduled to install new kitchen cabinets for the Hendersons that morning, but first I had some research to do. I pulled out my laptop and started with social media. Jessica's Instagram was a goldmine of information, especially her recent posts from the girls' trip. There she was at some lakeside bar, arm around Brad Watkins, both of them looking cozy and comfortable. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to reconnect with old friends to remember who you really are. Finding myself. New beginnings." Chelsea had posted video from the same night. Jessica and Brad dancing, laughing, whispering in each other's ears while her friends cheered them on. The comments were brutal. "Finally, you two belong together. About time you dumped the loser husband. Brad's such an upgrade." But the most interesting comment came from someone named Derek Fitness First. "Bro, didn't you tell me she was married? Cold move, man." I clicked on Derek's profile. Brad's business partner, apparently. Lots of gym photos, protein shake advertisements, and pictures of him with various women, including one from last month with Tara, Jessica's friend Tara, at what looked like an expensive restaurant. Interesting. I screenshotted everything, then moved on to Brad's own social media. The guy was exactly what you'd expect. Shirtless gym selfies, motivational quotes about grinding and alpha mindset, photos of his Dodge Charger from every possible angle. But buried in the older posts, I found something useful. A check-in at Murphy's Bar from 2 weeks ago with the caption, "Celebrating new opportunities. Some things are worth waiting for." 2 weeks ago. Right around the time Jessica had started working late and hiding her phone. I finished my coffee, grabbed my tools, and headed to the Henderson job. But first, I made a quick stop at Office Depot. If I was going to do this right, I needed supplies. The Henderson kitchen went smoothly. Nice people, fair price, quality work. The kind of job that reminded me why I loved what I did. While I worked, I thought about my next moves. This wasn't about destroying Jessica and Brad. It was about making sure they faced consequences for their choices. Real consequences. Around lunchtime, Marco stopped by. "How's the bachelor life treating you?" he asked, examining my cabinet work with professional appreciation. "Can't complain. Sleep better, eat what I want, nobody criticizing my life choices." "Any word from the wife?" "She's been calling. I've been ignoring." "Smart. Let her sweat a little." Marco paused. "You know, I saw something interesting this morning. Brad's car was parked outside the Riverside Apartments. You know, where Chelsea lives." I stopped what I was doing. "Chelsea? Jessica's friend Chelsea?" "The very one. Seemed early for a business meeting, if you know what I mean." I did know what he meant. And suddenly, a lot of things started making sense. Chelsea's constant encouragement for Jessica to upgrade. Her insistence that Brad was perfect for her. The way she'd filmed everything at the bar, like she was documenting evidence for later use. "Marco," I said slowly, "how would you feel about doing a little reconnaissance work?" "What kind of reconnaissance?" "The kind that involves sitting in a truck outside various locations and taking notes." His grin was answer enough. That evening, I finally returned Jessica's calls. She answered on the first ring. "Tommy, thank God. We need to talk." "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Can you meet me somewhere?" "Murphy's Bar. 1 hour." "That dive? Can't we go somewhere nicer?" "Murphy's, Jess. Take it or leave it." She took it. I got there early, claimed a corner booth, and ordered a beer. Rita was working again, and she gave me a knowing nod when Jessica walked in 20 minutes later. My wife looked good. She always looked good. But there was something different about her. New confidence, maybe. Or new guilt. Sometimes they looked the same. "You can't just disappear like that," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "People are talking. People have been talking for months. About how I'm not good enough for you, remember?" "That's not what I meant." "What did you mean?" She fidgeted with her wedding ring. Still wearing it, I noticed. "Look, maybe I said some things I shouldn't have. But that doesn't give you the right to humiliate me in front of the whole neighborhood." "Humiliate you? By moving out of my own house? By putting my stuff on the lawn like I was some kind of deadbeat tenant?" "Where did you end up staying, by the way?" I asked casually. "Chelsea's place?" Something flickered in her eyes. "What does that matter?" "Just curious. I mean, if you needed somewhere to go, you could have called. I would have helped you find a hotel." "I stayed with Maddie," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Maddie lives with her parents. She has a couch." I nodded, took a sip of my beer. "How's Brad doing?" "What?" "Brad Watkins. Your old friend. I saw the pictures from your girls' trip. Looked like you two had a nice time catching up." Her face went pale. "Tommy, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because from where I sit, it looks like you've been planning this for a while. The late nights, the hidden phone calls, the sudden dissatisfaction with our marriage. You've been setting up your exit strategy." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshot of Brad's post from 2 weeks ago. "New opportunities? Some things are worth waiting for?" What do you think he meant by that? Jessica stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Here's what I think happened," I continued. "I think you and Brad have been talking for months. I think your friends knew about it and encouraged it. I think this whole 'you're a joke' speech was designed to make me angry enough to leave, so you could play the victim. Poor Jessica, abandoned by her cruel husband. You're being paranoid." "Am I? Because I've got screenshots of Chelsea's Instagram stories from last weekend. Want to see them?" I didn't wait for her answer. I scrolled through the saved images on my phone, Jessica and Brad holding hands, kissing by the lake, slow dancing while her friends filmed and cheered. "This is what you call a girl's trip?" Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Real ones, I thought, but whether from guilt or anger, I couldn't tell. "I never meant for it to happen like this," she whispered. "But it did happen." "Yes. And now you want to come home and pretend it didn't. I want to try to fix this. To fix us." I finished my beer, left a 20 on the table. "There is no us, Jess. There hasn't been for a long time. You just made it official." "So that's it? You're giving up?" "I'm accepting reality. You want to be with Brad? Be with Brad. But don't expect me to make it easy for you." I stood to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "What does that mean?" I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. "It means I'm done being the punchline. It means I'm done being the nice guy who gets walked all over. It means you and your boyfriend are about to learn what happens when you push a quiet man too far." "Tommy, you're scaring me." "Good," I said. "Maybe now you'll take me seriously." I walked out of Murphy's bar into the cold Cleveland night, leaving my wife sitting alone in a booth, finally understanding that the man she'd married wasn't as weak as she'd thought. The revenge machine was warming up. Tuesday morning started with a phone call from my lawyer, Steve Kowalski. Yes, the same Kowalski whose apartment I was renting. He was a friend of my father's, a guy who'd handled the paperwork when I bought the house and incorporated my business. "Tommy," he said without preamble, "your wife's attorney called me yesterday. She's filing for divorce." "Good for her. She wants half of everything. The house, the business, your tools, your truck, everything." I was sitting in the Hendersons' kitchen, putting the finishing touches on their cabinet installation. "What did you tell them?" "I told them to go pound sand. The house is in your name, Bought before the marriage with your money. The business is incorporated as a sole proprietorship, and Ohio's not a community property state. So she gets what, exactly? Whatever you agree to give her in the settlement, or whatever a judge decides is fair if it goes to court. What would be fair? For a 3-year marriage with no kids and documented infidelity. Maybe 10, 15,000. Enough to get her started somewhere else. I smiled. Steve, I need you to do something for me. What's that? File a countersuit. I want documentation of her adultery, her abandonment of the marriage, and her attempt to defraud me of my assets. Tommy, that's going to get expensive and ugly. I'm counting on it. After I hung up, I called Marco. How's our surveillance project going? Oh, you're going to love this, Marco said. Brad's been making the rounds. Chelsea's place Monday night, your wife at the Marriott downtown Tuesday morning, and guess where he was yesterday afternoon? Tell me. Tara's house, stayed for 3 hours. I sat back in my truck, processing this information. He's playing all of them. Looks like it. And get this, I followed him to the bank yesterday. He spent 20 minutes inside, came out looking pissed off. Then he made a phone call, and I could hear him yelling from across the parking lot. Money problems? That'd be my guess. This was getting interesting. I thanked Marco and spent the rest of the morning thinking. By lunch, I had a plan. First stop, Brad's gym. Fitness. First was one of those aggressively masculine places where the weights were always too heavy and the music was always too loud. Brad was there naturally, working his chest and preening in front of the mirror. I walked up to him during his rest between sets. Brad, I said pleasantly. He looked surprised to see me. Tommy, hey man, look, about Jessica. Don't worry about it, I said. Actually, I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For taking her off my hands. Saved me a lot of trouble. His confusion was obvious. This wasn't the confrontation he'd been expecting. I mean, I continued, she's expensive. All those shoes, the makeup, the constant need for attention, you're going to love paying for all that. Yeah, sure. Although I heard you might be having some cash flow issues lately. Business troubles? His face darkened. Where'd you hear that? Small town, Brad, people talk. Something about overextending on the new locations, trouble with the bank. That's none of your business. You're absolutely right. Just like my wife was none of your business, but that didn't stop you. I could see him getting angry, his hands clenching into fists. Perfect. You got something to say to me? He asked, stepping closer. Just this. Jessica's got expensive tastes. Hope you can afford them. I walked away, leaving him standing there with his mouth open. Next stop, the hardware store. I bought zip ties, duct tape, and a few other supplies. Nothing illegal, just tools for a project I had in mind. That evening, I drove to Brad's house, a McMansion in a development that screamed, "Look how successful I am." His Dodge Charger was parked in the driveway, gleaming under the streetlights. I'd done some research on Brad's car. 2019 Charger SRT, 485 horsepower, his pride and joy. He posted pictures of it constantly, washed it twice a week, probably loved it more than any woman he'd ever dated, which made what I was about to do even more satisfying. I waited until after midnight, then got to work. Nothing permanent, nothing that would cause actual damage. Just a few modifications that would make his morning interesting. Zip ties around the drive shaft. They'd make a horrible noise when he started the car but wouldn't hurt anything. Duct tape over the exhaust pipe. It would blow off as soon as he hit the gas, but the engine would sound like it was dying until it did. And my personal favorite, a small Bluetooth speaker zip-tied under the car, programmed to play circus music at full volume whenever it detected movement. I was back home by 2 a.m., feeling better than I had in months. My phone woke me at 7:30. Unknown number. Is this Tommy Rourke? Angry male voice. Depends who's asking. This is Brad Watkins, and I know what you did to my car. I have no idea what you're talking about. The zip ties, the tape, That damn speaker playing circus music? You think this is funny? Did you call the police? What? If you think I vandalized your car, did you call the police? Silence. Because if you did, I continued, they're going to want to know why you think I did it, and that's going to lead to some interesting conversations about you sleeping with my wife. More silence. Have a great day, Brad. I hung up and made myself breakfast, whistling. Around noon, Jessica called. Tommy, what did you do to Brad's car? Good afternoon to you too, Jess. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. This isn't funny. He's furious. I'm sure he is. Did he tell you what happened? He said you sabotaged his car. Did he have any proof? Well, no, but then I guess it's just his word against mine. And given that he's been sleeping with my wife, I'm not sure how credible his word is. Tommy, you need to stop this. Stop what? I haven't done anything illegal. Can't say the same for you two. What's that supposed to mean? It means adultery is still technically illegal in Ohio, even if it's rarely prosecuted. It also means you've given me grounds for a fault divorce, which could affect the settlement. I could hear her sharp intake of breath. My lawyer will be in touch, I said, and hung up. The rest of the week followed a similar pattern. Small annoyances for Brad. His gym membership mysteriously canceled. His credit card declined at restaurants. His phone number somehow added to every spam list I could find. Nothing traceable. Nothing illegal. Just the kind of minor inconveniences that add up to major frustration. For Jessica, I took a different approach. I started telling the truth. I called her boss at the insurance agency, explained that she'd be going through a divorce and might need some time off. I mentioned that she'd been having an affair and that it might affect her ability to focus on work. I called her mother, expressed my sadness that the marriage hadn't worked out, and casually mentioned that Jessica had reconnected with an old boyfriend. I called our mutual friends, the few we still had, and let them know that Jessica had decided she'd rather be with someone else. I wasn't spreading lies or malicious gossip. I was just making sure people knew the truth about why our marriage was ending. By Friday, Jessica was getting calls from concerned family members and friends. Her reputation in our social circle was taking a beating, and she knew exactly who was responsible. "You're destroying my life," she said when she called that evening. "I'm not destroying anything," I replied. "I'm just not protecting you from the consequences of your choices anymore. People are treating me like a pariah. People don't like cheaters. Who knew? I made a mistake. You made a choice, multiple choices, over multiple weeks. You chose to have an affair. You chose to humiliate me in front of your friends. You chose to try to take half of everything I've worked for. These are the consequences. What do you want from me? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to realize that I'm not the weak, pathetic joke you thought I was. And I want you to leave me alone so I can get on with my life. And if I don't, then you'll find out just how creative I can be when I put my mind to it." She hung up on me, but I could hear the fear in her voice. The revenge machine was hitting its stride. Saturday morning brought the kind of crisp October air that made you remember why people stayed in Ohio despite everything. I was up early, putting the finishing touches on my latest project, a complete renovation of the apartment above the Kowalski place. What had started as a temporary crash pad was turning into something special. My phone had been quiet for 2 days. No calls from Jessica, no angry voicemails from Brad. The calm before the storm, I figured. I was right. Marco showed up around 10 with coffee and news. "You're not going to believe what I saw last night," he said, settling into one of the 2 chairs I'd bought for my new kitchen table. "Try me." Brad and Chelsea, having what looked like a pretty heated argument outside Murphy's bar. Lots of pointing, lots of yelling. Then she slapped him and stormed off. Interesting. Any idea what it was about? Couldn't hear much, but I caught something about money and promises. Oh, and she called him a lying bastard, twice. I sipped my coffee, thinking. What time was this? Around 9. But here's the really interesting part. Jessica was there too, sitting in her car across the street, watching the whole thing. She saw them fighting? Oh, yeah. And she did not look happy about it. This was better than I'd hoped. I'd suspected that Brad was playing all three women, but having them figure it out on their own was perfect. Nothing I could orchestrate would be as effective as the truth revealing itself. There's more, Marco continued. I followed Jessica after she left. She went straight to Tara's house, stayed there for 2 hours. The plot thickens. It gets thicker. This morning I saw Tara leaving Brad's place. She looked like she'd been crying. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. 3 women, 1 lying bastard, and a whole lot of hurt feelings. This was going to implode spectacularly. Marco, I said, how would you feel about hosting a little gathering tonight? What kind of gathering? The kind where the truth finally comes out. That afternoon, I made some phone calls, first to Chelsea, then to Maddie, then to Tara. The conversations were similar. Hi, it's Tommy, Jessica's husband. I know this is awkward, but I need to talk to you about something important. Something about Brad Watkins and what he's been telling each of you. Can you meet me at Murphy's bar tonight around 8? Trust me, you'll want to hear this. And bring Jessica. She needs to hear this too. Each of them tried to ask questions, but I kept it vague. Just enough information to make them curious, not enough to let them compare notes ahead of time. By 7:30, I was sitting in my usual corner booth at Murphy's, with a folder full of printed screenshots, bank records, public information, and other documentation I'd gathered over the past week. Rita brought me a beer without being asked. You look like a man with a plan, she observed. Something like that. Good. That bastard's had it coming. Chelsea arrived first, looking nervous and overdressed for Murphy's. She spotted me immediately and came over, her heels clicking on the worn wooden floor. Tommy, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. This is weird. I know, thanks for coming. What's this about? Let's wait for the others. Maddie came in 5 minutes later, followed by Tara. Jessica was last, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Okay, Jessica said, remaining standing while the others sat. We're all here. What's this about? Sit down, Jess, please. She reluctantly took the last chair. I looked around the table at these 4 women who had spent months treating me like a joke and felt a surge of satisfaction. Ladies, I began, I asked you all here because I think you deserve to know the truth about Brad Watkins. What truth? Chelsea asked, but her voice was shaky. I opened my folder and pulled out the first set of screenshots. These are from Brad's phone records, public information, obtained through my divorce attorney. Chelsea, you've been texting with Brad for 6 weeks. Tara, you've been seeing him for 2 months. Jessica, you've been having an affair with him for 3 months. The silence at the table was deafening. But here's the interesting part, I continued, pulling out more papers. He's been telling each of you that you're the only one, that he's going to leave the others for you, that you're special. That's not true, Jessica said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? I slid a printed text conversation across the table. This is from his phone to Tara 2 days ago. You're the only one I really care about. The others don't mean anything. Tara's face went white as she read. And this, I said, sliding another printout to Chelsea, is what he texted you yesterday. I'm going to end things with Jessica and Tara. You're the one I want to be with. Chelsea's hands were shaking as she read. And Jessica, I said, turning to my wife, this is what he sent you this morning. Don't worry about what you saw last night. Chelsea means nothing to me. You're my future. The explosion was immediate and spectacular. You lying piece of shit, Tara screamed, jumping up from her chair. You told me you loved me. He told me the same thing, Chelsea shot back. Last week at my apartment. Your apartment? Jessica's voice was ice cold. He was at your apartment? Multiple times, I said helpfully, according to his GPS data, which is also public record in a divorce proceeding. GPS data? Maddie asked. She'd been quiet until now, but her face was red with anger. Oh, Maddie, I said, pulling out another sheet. I almost forgot about you. Tuesday afternoon, Brad's car was parked outside your parents' house for 3 hours. Want to explain that to your friends? Maddie burst into tears. The table exploded as Jessica, Chelsea, Tara, and Maddie turned on each other, their friendship dying in front of me. That's when Brad walked in and froze, seeing all 4 of his girlfriends in one place. I called him over, let them tear into him, then confirmed what they all already feared. He'd been sleeping with every one of them, including my wife. When he tried to blame me and come at me, Rita stepped in with a bat and Brad stormed out, alone for the first time in a long time. I told Jessica my lawyer would handle the rest and walked away. 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. She moved back in with her parents and started therapy. Brad's gym fell apart within 2 months, and he left town in disgrace. The other women patched things up without Jessica. I expanded my business, bought a bigger apartment, and started dating someone kind and honest. When people ask if I regret how far I went, I tell them no. If someone spends years making you feel small, you don't just walk away, you push back. Hard.